My name's Nigel. I'm from a relatively new firm called Aptum. We only do commercial litigation, so a big tick from Tim. And we price based on value, and we don't have timesheets. There's a particular issue that arises in litigation that makes it difficult to price based on the client's perception of value. And it's what to do when a client has trouble articulating what their objectives are, has trouble understanding how to prioritise their competing objectives, and really a circumstance where a client's desires are often against their best interests. So how do we deal with that situation? Before I was with Aptum, I spent many years as a commercial barrister, and in my first few months at the bar I got this fantastic brief. I was briefed to act for elderly Italian migrants whose adult daughter had forged their mortgage several times to the point where they had almost wiped out the entire house. Now I said it was fantastic. From my perspective, I'm an emotionally stunted law nerd, as most typical commercial barristers are, and I see this sea of complex legal problems. Fantastic. You know, there's unconscionability, there's all sorts of issues. And so I go down that path, because that's the path that I see. This is my perspective. I know what I have to do. I've got to solve these legal problems. So off we go. And that governs the work that's done for the next 12 to 18 months. We get to mediation. I haven't spent a lot of time with the clients by this point. It's fairly typical for a commercial barrister. Get to the mediation. Now you can just appreciate how distraught this elderly couple were. Not only are they facing the extraordinary fear of losing their entire house, they're in their 80s, but the betrayal of their daughter, extraordinary circumstance. So spending time with them in the mediation, and spending a lot of time with them throughout the course of the day, there were a number of things that came about. Emotions that were driving objectives, that would drive different kinds of responses and solutions. So firstly, there was just anger. Like, how could she have done this to us? This is outrageous, this is a terrible injustice. We can't let her get away with this, it's awful. There's extraordinary grief. She's betrayed us, but she's still our daughter. We don't want to die angry with her. And then there's fear. How do we face the last few years of our life without our house? What are we going to do? And all of those things elicit different responses. The anger, the injustice says, right, let's just keep fighting. The grief is like, maybe we should just let it all go. We just need to let it go so we can live peacefully and resolve it with our daughter. And the fear is, how do we hold on to our house? So when we put all those things together, and I realise we spend the time, we actually fashioned this solution. Before I get to that, what that made me realise and why we price based on value is because it forces us to do a few things. It forces us and encourages us and incentivises us to be empathetic first. So to stop. Before we see the legal problems, we stop, we empathise. We try and put ourselves in the client's shoes, we want to understand what they're going through. That's the first thing. It forces us to engage with them, to understand precisely what their objectives are and how they compete. What was going to be the most important outcome for them. So it forces us to do those things. Go back to the mediation. After getting that was an emotional day, we get to a resolution where, I should say this involves all these rogue lenders as well, it's another story, but we get to this resolution where effectively the parents get an outcome where they can keep their house for the remainder of their life. They get to stay in it. They also get a resolution where they can reconcile with their daughter. So the daughter is no longer on the hook. And they get to stay in their house the whole time. And we get to the end of the mediation, and this proud 80-year-old Italian man who was proud all the way through, he was rock solid all the way through. And we sign up, and he burst into tears. And he gave me a big hug. And so I look back on that and I ask myself, well, why do we Why do we value price? It's so we can do what we signed up to do, and that's to help people by focusing on what matters. Thanks.